Hello, everyone. This week, we're going to be talking about the lawsuit that's being brought by 6 individuals against the United States Treasury Department regarding their designation of the Tornado Cash smart contracts as sanctioned entities. This is a huge deal, and Coinbase is proud to sponsor and support this lawsuit because we think that it's important that somebody is able to bring it. For a little bit of context for everyone, the Tornado Cash smart contracts are a technology, a tool that helps individuals preserve their privacy on the blockchain. What it allows individuals to do is quite simple. It allows them to deposit funds from a single address and then withdraw them to another unassociated address, and thereby breaking the link between those two accounts. A really simple way of putting it in layman's terms is that it allows people to take cash that they currently have laying in a drawer and putting it in a safe inside their own house. You're not mixing the currencies, you're not interacting with other people, you're just moving your own money around. This is an important privacy preserving technology, given that everything on the Ethereum blockchain is public today. And so with that, I'm really, really excited to have these 4 individuals, and let's dive in.
So, I've known some of you folks for a very long time, but maybe one of the things that we'll do is just kick it off with a round of introductions.
Hey, I'm Preston Van Loon. I'm an Ethereum core developer, a co-founder at Prismatic Labs. I've been involved with Ethereum since the beginning of 2018. I thought it was a really, really interesting technology where you can deploy things in a decentralized fashion and really have, quote, unstoppable applications. Ethereum has this great guarantees of liveness and security. And with that, you can power really interesting innovations, especially in the financial space. I then saw, that Ethereum has a lot of work to do in the core protocol. It was kind of slow, already expensive, already reaching the limits of the blockchain with people buying NFTs, CryptoKitties to be specific. So I took it upon myself to say, I want to get involved. I want to work on the core protocol. We formed a group called Prismatic Labs and have been contributing to the consensus side of Ethereum ever since.
Alex, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I read, guys, Alex Fisher. I go by Alex.eth everywhere. I read the Bitcoin white paper in 2013, and then I reread it, and I kind of like tried to figure it out for that year. And then 2014, I was like, okay, this is a really interesting technology. I studied computer engineering, and so when I read the Ethereum white paper later in probably 2015, I was just blown away like by the idea of blockchain transactions and then like programmable code. So I got really, really interested in it. At the time, I was running a small software shop here in Michigan, and I just kept spending more nights and weekends and then days, thinking about Ethereum and blockchain. And finally, I sold my company in early 2016 to focus on Ethereum. So everything from coding Solidity to going to hackathons to doing some like Fortune 100 consulting about blockchain and crypto. And then more recently, I've been more focused on staking. And so I have a couple small staking companies, and I've been really focused on making sure my Prism clients work. And so I've been testing the Prism software for years. Preston, you guys did an amazing job, and really, really proud of the community this week.
Yeah, and for reference, we're recording this episode on September 16th. So the Ethereum merge actually happened a little bit more than 24 hours ago, which is kind of wild to think about because so many of the folks here had a big part to play in it. And Preston and his team at Prismatic Labs, who created and helped maintain the Prism client software, is the most widely used client, which is essentially a piece of software that operates the Ethereum blockchain. And so his team is responsible for like one of the most important contributions to what keeps Ethereum running, which is really, really, really amazing. But with that, I'll pass it over to Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Victor. My name is Kevin Vitale. I'm currently the principal crypto engineer at a company called Grid Plus. We manufacture the Lattice One hardware wallet. Actually, I got my shirt on today. I first got into crypto in 2017 in a serious way. A couple years prior to that, I had conversations with people in my network. Some of them were kind of really interested in what was going on there. And I took a look at it probably around 2013, 2012. And it wasn't necessarily aligning with what I was interested in at the time. And I'll be honest too, even in 2017, it took me a really long time to understand it. I didn't get it. I talked to a lot of people in this space, and seemingly right away they had a pretty good idea of what they wanted from the ecosystem. I wanted something different than what I had worked on for the last 15 years, which was a lot of Web 2 and specifically mobile things. My background includes some pretty widely known applications in mobile space, and I was just looking for something else. Once I did start looking into it, though, I think what drew me into it and what I got really excited about was the attitude and the community in the ecosystem, specifically in Ethereum, that just saw potential in something that supported human coordination in a way that I wasn't finding elsewhere in the technology that I was looking around. I got into technology really early on as a kid, like all of us, we were a bunch of nerds, just looking at the pretty pictures flashing on the television, thinking how cool this magic was. But ultimately, my career was set out to be impactful and to join, a community of people who are always looking to do what, not only things that were fun, but seemed important. I found that now in Ethereum, and I'm extremely thrilled to have been a part of this community for so long now, a couple years, 5 years, whatever it is. I'm extremely thankful for the opportunity to play a part in shaping the future of this network through my work at Grid Plus, through other interests that I have in staking, building smart contract apps. This has been one of the things I feel like I'm finally getting to pay forward in a way that I deeply get connected to.
I want to have Tyler introduce himself, but then Kevin, I'm going to come right back to you and ask you a little bit more about that.
I'm also really interested to learn more about your work at Grid Plus. But yeah, my name's Tyler Almeida. I'm a senior security risk analyst at a small company, Coinbase. You probably heard of it, maybe. Yeah, I think I would echo a lot of what everyone's kind of said here, and my intro into crypto has also been kind of long and winding, as I'm sure a lot of people. I think I was first introduced to Bitcoin and the Bitcoin white paper probably in, I don't remember the year, but would have been in like the college dorms. I remember I first heard about it because I was playing a online game, and someone was selling virtual gold in that game on eBay for Bitcoin. And I think I remember trying to get Bitcoin, had no idea how to get it, ended up giving up.
Wait, which game was it?
It was World of Warcraft. But, neither here nor there. And yeah, I had no idea how to get it. I thought, okay, this is kind of a weird thing. Ended up not going through with it, but through a bunch of online, communities and forums, found the white paper. I'll admit, didn't read it fully, skimmed it, but I was like, this is cool. And kind of got involved in the communities enough to just kind of have that intro, right? And so the years go on, you hear more about it. I'm still maybe fairly dismissive, but interested. I'm like, okay, I like the idea. The dreamer in me is wants to know more, but I'm like, I'm also a realist. This, who knows where this is going to end up. TLDR, kind of fast forward a bunch of years, probably around 2016, 17, I started getting a little bit more involved. Hear chatter about this Ethereum thing. There's a bunch of other chains that are now kind of launching and show a lot of promise, and kind of echoing with Kevin, the community as well, like was super open, super helpful as far as like getting involved, getting into the space, helping me figure out how the heck do I self-custody this stuff? Like what are these, wallets? What, how do you understand the concept behind these? But yeah, still no way to get professionally involved. I was in consulting and security and privacy. A lot of these companies aren't very, at the time, very corporate or very, structured. So they're not looking for a security risk analyst, right? So come around time of the Coinbase DPO, a prior colleague of mine who's working at Coinbase says, hey man, I'm wearing 17 hats here. One of them is security risk. We need someone here. Are you interested? And that was kind of like, all the stars aligning for me. I was like, yes, let's totally do this. And since then I've been kind of just leaning in 100% into crypto. So
that's awesome. All right, how long have you been at Coinbase?
The week after the public offering. So,
Oh,
yeah.
very cool.
I tried getting in before. It was a lengthy process, and everyone was out celebrating the offering, and so the next onboarding session was the Monday after.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was over at Bison Trails, which is
Okay.
an infrastructure provider, and we got acquired, I think, like 2 months before the GPO, sometime around January, February. So we joined right before. So we have about some very similar tenure over here at Coinbase.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. Honestly, I just one last point I'd add to, kind of what got me into crypto. I've been going to, corporate conventions and kind of events for years, and I'd always come home just like, is this for me? Like, I don't really connect at those kind of things. It's all very salesy. And then I start going to crypto conventions and conferences, and I'm just like, these are my people. I go there, I have so much fun. I finish, and I'm like, okay, when's the next one? So, I think that's really what drew me in, the kind of like that final straw. I was just like, all right, I'm all in. I just want to hang around these people if that's all I have to do for the rest of my career. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks here feel the same way, especially with DevCon coming up next month, and that's going to be a really amazing celebration with everybody. There's something else that you mentioned just around gaming. One of the things I find really fascinating is that a lot of folks that are in crypto have similar elements in their backgrounds. You see a lot of poker players. You also see a lot of gamers, and it's especially gamers that have gone outside of the strict rules of the game around what they wanted to be able to do. And so for me, that game was RuneScape. I didn't sell gold, but I did help people. I was essentially a middleman, ferrying things between the real world and RuneScape at the time.
It's funny you mentioned that, because that's what I was looking to do. I was looking to sell some of my stuff from RuneScape to get into Bitcoin, and then use that Bitcoin to purchase something on World of Warcraft. I was trying to go between games, and I thought that was such a cool concept at the time. Like, there's this way that you can get tangibility out of one game and transfer assets between games. And so I've always been kind of a quiet evangelist of like, how cool would that be in the future? And like, we're kind of here now, where we're starting to see elements of that actually take shape, which I just think is awesome.
Yeah, totally. So what I wanted to chat about next is, so you folks are 4 of the 6 plaintiffs as part of this lawsuit. And when we look at this lawsuit, obviously it has very wide-ranging implications for the crypto ecosystem, and we think that it's going to be something that a lot of folks should be keeping an eye on. But it's not an easy decision to join any lawsuit at all, right? Like, nobody would like to be involved in one by choice, but especially this lawsuit with as many implications as it has. And so something I wanted to spend a little bit of time on is just understanding, how you folks thought about it, and what compelled you to join this lawsuit and participate. The reason I wanted to start out with Kevin actually was because, as he was talking about his work on Grid Plus, which is a hardware wallet, what that allows you to do is it allows users to self-custody their assets and to be able to, exert sovereignty over how they hold their assets and what they do with them, and things of that nature. And so there's some really interesting implications there, because obviously the blockchain is all public today, or at least the Ethereum blockchain is. And so, as a user, if you're holding all your own assets and all of it is publicly visible, that certain addresses hold certain funds, that creates all kinds of implications and challenges for individual privacy. And so, Kevin, if you don't mind, I'll kick it over to you. I'd love to hear about why you felt compelled to join this lawsuit.
Sure, it's a easy question with not a very simple answer. Right. So it kind of boiled down to, I took what was thousands of different thoughts and decision points once this became something that could clearly happen. And I tried to frame it in how I got myself to this point in the first place. I've changed my life around for this network, this industry, this ecosystem, and a lot of people do that when they go and search for things that motivates them, inspires them. I did it with my previous work in Web 2 and mobile, but that, I think, speaks unto itself. I had a number of years of experience in a wide network of people in that previous life, and felt successful in that enough, but wanted what I thought was, at a personal level, to start making impactful changes, and I didn't necessarily know how to do that. When it comes down to it, I completely uprooted my professional and personal life around this network. I'm working 2 jobs in the ecosystem, one as an individual contributor at a wallet manufacturing company, and one as a small business owner helping to secure this network. And those aren't just things you wake up, one morning on a Sunday and be like, "That's going to happen. I'm just going to start doing this now, and it's all going to work out." I think the gravity of that, and accepting what that really meant, means that if there was anyone who was given the opportunity, like I was being given, if it wasn't going to be me, who would it be? What would the profile of person who I would want to represent what I'm doing and what I think is important? Who would that look like? And as long as it kind of aligns with it, and I know that there's going to be a lot of people who feel that way, who feel like this opportunity is something they would have loved to participate in for many of the same reasons. And ultimately, I just feel like I'm hopefully representing some piece of their sentiment, and I hopefully get to represent and participate in change that they want for themselves, and is going to make this the future of this ecosystem much better for everyone who values their personal privacy and values their digital identities.
Yeah, and you and Alex have been working together, if I understand correctly, on the small business around securing the Ethereum blockchain. Is that correct?
Yeah. We've I found a great partner in Alex, someone who I should have found out from my network a long time ago, but only recently in 2017 we kind of crossed paths, and then found out everyone else we knew us, but we didn't know each other. It just happened like that. It's now spanned almost 2 years of partnership. Informal professional partnership, where we get to soundboard one another's thoughts. We get to talk and discuss what we're thinking, look for opportunities, and actually execute and implement infrastructure so that we're up 24/7 and allowing these transactions to go through.
That's awesome. Alex, can I kick it over to you? What compelled you? I mean, obviously you and Kevin talked a bunch about it, but love to hear your viewpoint.
Yeah, well, so I mean, Kevin kind of alluded to the fact that, and it's probably no secret that we're big nerds, right? Probably most of us here. So I grew up in the '80s, and in the '90s, I remember the web, the inception of the web in 92, 93. I was just some pimply face preteen making an HTML web page back in, I think it was 93 or 94. I made my first web page, and my parents college internet access account or whatever. But remembering back the '90s and Phil Zimmerman and the release of PGP, or Pretty Good Privacy, basically an open source encryption alternative. The reality is, I think writing code or software or sharing ideas, whether they're encrypted or not, it's strings of numbers, digits, and there's nothing wrong with that. Even if people don't agree with it, you have a basic human right to write those things, and even if you want to write them to yourself and keep them private, I do see that as a human right. So that was really having memories of the '90s and government, in some ways trying to make encryption illegal was something that was very chilling to me when the Tornado Cash announcement was made. It was okay, yesterday I could run this software, and now today randomly just someone decided if I do, I could go to jail for a long time, and that shocked me. I think Kevin was on vacation that week, and about 2 days in, I messaged him. I was like, dude, I think I'm having an existential crisis. Do you know what this means? Everything may have changed. And so it was very chilling to me. And when I was, given the opportunity to maybe, do a small part in taking some action to kind of address this, I thought long and hard, and I thought this is something that if I didn't do it, I would regret not trying to do my part. And so I felt it was a duty.
Yeah, and it's so amazing to hear you mention Zimmerman and PGP. A lot of folks forget that encryption, it wasn't even that they were trying to make it illegal. it was classified as munitions up until sometime in the 90s. And munitions is, literally bombs and grenades and guns and, all the things that you could be exporting, which is crazy. And I think a lot of folks that haven't, that weren't around for it, take it for granted that we have encryption, and that something like end-to-end encryption, which is what we expect as a norm in our communications today, is a thing that is accessible to people, and to us. There's a really good book called The Code Book, and I believe it was written in 1999. And in that book, the author talks about the history of encryption, the history of ciphers, in a way that is very understandable. You don't need any kind of math background to read it. It's really, really good. And it talks about the Caesar cipher and all these different machines and inventions and advancements of encryption. And so you realize it's not a recent phenomenon. Privacy is not a recent phenomenon. Privacy is normal. People have always wanted privacy, and it's always been normal. And so when we look at privacy today, it's actually an anomaly. The amount, like how little privacy we have today, and the desire to maintain privacy and desire to have financial privacy is the norm. And it's been the norm for like as long as people have had the concept of privacy or needed privacy, which I think is really interesting.
Victor, if you don't mind, I just want to kind of touch on something that Alex reminded me of. He mentioned a little bit early on in the early days of the internet, 90s, and cryptography. Without sounding too old, like I just want to recount, like there was this sense that I got when this Tornado Cash sanction stuff happened. Like I was thinking about my existence. If you're of a certain age, Victor, you have an existence that aligns with the entire growth of the internet for more or less when it's come into the minds and hearts of consumers, or like normal users. It's like this 4-part tech journey. It's existed your whole life. You saw cryptography issues in the 90s, potentially outlawing privacy in that manner. You may have remembered peer-to-peer file sharing and music downloads that really shaped, was another pinnacle like moment of, wow, this technology is so capable. Then a couple years later, you had BitTorrent, and now you have cryptocurrency. Basically, it says that my entire existence, being the nerd that Alex had mentioned we all are, has in one way or another interfaced with concerns about the legality of this technology, when frankly all I've ever wanted to just do is enjoy the cool stuff that I see going on in front of me, and then across this digital landscape, like connecting with people around the world, like Tyler mentioned when he was playing video games. Like I just kind of feel like a little bit naive in a slight way, that I've just kind of been here looking at cool stuff that I enjoy, and think it pushes us forward in various ways, digital and otherwise. So that's just one of those things that I kind of was reminded of when I was listening to what Alex was talking about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Preston and Tyler, if you guys have anything you want to comment on, now is the time. And if not, love to hear what compelled you to join this lawsuit.
What compelled me to join this, right? I work on Ethereum because I believe in the technology. I think that it can really reach like a scale that helps people on a global scale. And part of scaling, I think, is to have privacy preserving technology. I adamantly believe that there is no freedom without privacy. Privacy is a fundamental right. And, when I saw these sanctions come up for Tornado Cash, and that they suddenly said you can't use this code anymore, and that anybody who facilitates the use of that code could be subject to sanctions, I was really concerned about the precedent that might set. As a core developer for Ethereum, I say, okay, well, how far does that go? Could that be as far as saying the Ethereum protocol itself cannot be credibly neutral based on U.S. sanctions? And that was something I was really kind of worried about there. So I wanted to join and kind of be a part of this movement. Say, can we get privacy preserving, keep Ethereum to be credibly neutral, and really be this platform that it aims to be?
Yeah, and I think that's such a powerful way of looking at it, because when we think about the Ethereum blockchains, or just blockchains generally, it's almost like a mirror image of the real world where you have infrastructure and there's things that are built on top of that infrastructure. And so in the real world, you have, pipes and roads and electricity and all these various different components. And then you have everything else is built on top, and then people interact there. And they mostly do good things. And every once in a while, people do things that we disagree with or that are actually illegal. And the same thing happens with Ethereum, right? People build all kinds of stuff on it. And it's just serving as the pipes in the road and the infrastructure. And so when we think about it, like most of the stuff there is stuff that we agree with, but there's also going to be things that we disagree with or that are illegal in some countries. And that's just the state of it. And so I think it's a really important point that you made around like, what are all the implications of it? And I think one of the interesting things that I always think about is, when we have places for law enforcement and we have places to express opinions, where is the right place to express those perspectives and go after criminals, and what are the right tools to do it? And so essentially, how do you not throw the baby out with the bathwater, and how do you target how you approach these challenges?
And I think that's an interesting perspective to put it in, because obviously I think professionally, which resonates with me personally, there's the security and privacy aspect of it where I'm just like, this has to be, this has to be default, right? Security by default, privacy by default,
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing. I think so many of us, just professionals generally, we define so much of ourselves based off of the work that we do. But there's also, right, like a reason behind the work and a reason behind the career. And so that's what I'd love to tease out here.
Yeah. No, and it totally resonates with me in that personal aspect, kind of behind what I present as my professional ideals. And I think, well, first, to answer the question, I was not compelled initially to join this. In fact, I was very hesitant. And I think I mentioned it earlier. I'm very much kind of a quiet advocate, or like a quiet evangelist of all things crypto and security and privacy. In my personal life, I tend to, not want to shout things from the rooftops. And so, but amongst friends, I'm always talking about security and privacy and how important it is, and trying to rectify, a lot of ideals that people have. It's like, well, I have nothing to hide. It's my favorite argument to combat. But I would say, personally, I think that's where a lot of, reason, or what compelled me to join this, was at the end of the day, and I'd echo kind of what Alex said. It's about it. There was this weird sense of like duty that I felt, okay, this is one of the things that feels righteous enough, or at least, feels like finally something that I would stand up for and want to put my foot down. Especially, it's civil discourse. It's saying, hey, I think privacy is a right, and should be kind of enabled by default. And this is one of our options. But more importantly, it's something that protects the, how I personally view, privacy, which is it's not that I have something to hide, but it's like, if it's an option, why wouldn't I want to have some of my stuff be a little bit more anonymous? I'm not someone who likes to just go from the rooftop, start shouting every opinion I have, and everything on the internet lives forever. And if you have the option to not have it live forever, or at least publicly directly attributable to you, that's of my personal opinion. And I was like, why would I want to do that? So I think that kind of answers it. It's very much more of the just the personal want to not be the tallest, weed sticking out of the bunch, right? So,
hey, Victor, for the record, I think both Preston and I are like 6-footers, so we already stand out as it is. But I did have one kind of comment based off of what Tyler said that we haven't talked about yet, and that's safety. And like we talked about security, like data security, but even safety of us as individuals, people connected to us, our relatives. There was a hardware wallet manufacturer, I think a couple years ago now, that had their internal records compromised. So there's a lot of people that had gotten into crypto, I think, before 2017 or 2018. Now their home addresses, phone numbers, the record that they had a hardware wallet for crypto is out there. And if you were on that list, I am on that list. You, like, to this day, years later, you get scammers and hackers, texting you or emailing you, and you're a target. That's that comes with the territory. I mean, it's hard to totally prevent that kind of stuff, especially in a Web 2 world where you don't have sovereignty over your own data. But I do think that, as a member of this community and a user of Ethereum, you can just really easily, like, pretty much everyone will accidentally dox themselves at some point. For example, just a few hours ago, someone posted on Twitter, they proposed a block, like their ETH validator proposed like their first or second block, and they mentioned it, they got an X amount of ETH reward. Now, situations like that where they're like, you're not giving out your account address, you're not linking it to an ENS name. Sometimes people say, oh, well, people unintentionally use ENS and they dox themselves that way. I think even without ENS, you just have a comment like that. Now I can go look at that value of ETH. I can see the blocks that were proposed over the last hour, and I can potentially find out, I can link a real world identity to that Ethereum account. And I think whenever we talk about new projects and everything's so bleeding edge, it's just really easy without a privacy protocol like Tornado Cash to protect yourself.
Yeah. With everything just so public on the blockchain, I mean, all it takes is one action in one place, and you can accidentally, that could be like the hub in a spoke, millions of spokes, and all of a sudden now a ton of data points are attributable to one person, have not now just been linked. Maybe 5 years in the future, I get an ENS and I accidentally purchase it with my main wallet. Now, boom, everything is attributable directly to my person. So, it's more about future thinking as well. It's not like, hey, I'm trying to hide something today or be private today, but it's also thinking in the future. What if I do something in the future that I don't want to be public? How do I protect that from day zero? So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that when we think about the future where crypto is going to be widely adopted, one of the things it's going to be very useful for is payments, right? Obviously. And the question becomes, do you want people to know which supermarket you shop at, how often you go there, what your schedule looks like, where you get your haircuts? Like, all these things are going to be visible, which to everybody, right? And if you ever slip up, as Tyler and Alex were saying, and you've kept a perfect track record. You've been spending a lot of time and being extremely cautious, which, by the way, most people will not do. At some point, almost everybody slips up, and at that point, all of your history now becomes publicly accessible and viewable for anybody that's paying attention. And I think we already know that a lot of people are paying attention, and in the future, that is only going to increase. And so when we think about it from that perspective, like it's scary. It really is. And the thing is that because all of this stuff is so widely available, it's not even that just the quote unquote bad guys of nations or whatever are going to be the ones watching. People can just create open source tools, right? That are going to be websites and UIs and things that are available to just be like, hey, put it in this address and start getting information out of it. And so this isn't just going to be available to nations. Like, this is going to be available to everybody. And it's really important that privacy is possible so that everybody can protect themselves and make sure that everybody remains secure. When we look at this lawsuit, I mean, preferably it wouldn't have been a lawsuit, right? Nobody here wants to be involved in a lawsuit. It's not something that anybody seeks out. But I think one of the important things is that the way that this is going is according to the process that is defined in the United States, right? Like, this is how you go through the system. This is how you work within the system. This is how you work with Treasury and all these other actors to both challenge but also educate and try to work together to reach the right conclusion. And I think that's one of the important things, which is that sometimes crypto, especially if you've been paying attention to crypto in the very early days, sometimes it has a little bit of a Wild West perception, even though that's not actually true, and it hasn't been true for a long time. And I think this is one of the latest examples of crypto individuals and crypto companies operating within the rules and frameworks of different regulatory agencies and following processes in order to come to consensus and help everybody reach the correct conclusions as we see them to be.
Yeah, and if I could just add something to that, I think that is one of the things. If I was performing a general risk analysis on should I join this lawsuit, as I did, there was a lot of pros, a lot of cons, and some of the things that helped me get a lot more easy with this was thinking about it and looking at this through the frame of, this is purely civil discourse, right? It's we're not claiming that anything from an ideological or some kind of religious standpoint or something. It's, hey, there was this process, and we're going to engage in this other process that's perfectly legal to say, hey, we disagree with that action that was taking place. And yeah, in fact, if nothing else, it felt like we were doing our civic duty to perform those checks and balances that we're given as a right, as part of our government. So I think that also helped a lot in the decision-making process.
Yeah, totally. So we're coming up on time. And so what I'd love to leave off with is, what do you hope to accomplish by filing this lawsuit? Like, what is the end goal for you folks? Obviously, the lawsuit specifically concerns the Tornado Cash smart contracts themselves, so the software itself. And so would love to hear from you guys, like what you hope to accomplish, and if there's anything else beyond the software itself that is important to you.
Well, I'll just start. I mean, I'd like OFAC and Treasury to rescind the judgment that they dropped a little over a month ago. But the reality is that there's the way it was done is not. I don't think it would be effective, and I don't think it's hurting anyone but legal users like us. So that's the short of it.
Yeah, it would really echo what Alex is saying. Is we would like to see these sanctions lifted, and saying that you can't sanction code. That's not right, and to encourage sustaining privacy preserving technology within Ethereum and other blockchain technologies, because privacy is freedom. There's no freedom without privacy. It's a fundamental right that entitled to us all.
Privacy is something that we're losing with each generation in the current digital trends. I think of the plaintiffs, I'm not sure how many have families. I think about this a lot, and I think about what I personally wanted when I came to the ecosystem, and I think about what I'm witnessing and participating in as part of this lawsuit. It's really important that we remember privacy is something that is fundamental, and code is speech. I've been writing code for years. I've never thought about it as anything more than how I'm thinking about and saying things through, numbers and symbols. And underpinning all of that is this incredible set of math rules that play that play the song, and you hear the tune, and it's the same thing every time, more or less. It's we're logical people, and it seems logical above all else to think that we should exist with the right to privacy.
Yeah, and so my wife and I are pregnant right now, and we have a baby boy on the way.
Both of you? Congratulations, Victor.
Thank you. What did they call it? Sympathy weight? I did gain some.
It happens, brother.
But I definitely think a lot about that, right? With a son on the way, how do we build the right world in which he can, continue to find and experience freedom in America and throughout the world, and continue to maintain privacy and continue to help self-sovereignty over his financial life and future. Without
just repeating everything that everyone has said, which I totally agree with. I think I probably resonate more with kind of Kevin's side as well. From the technology standpoint, I've always thought, zero knowledge proofs were the coolest thing since sliced bread. And I really want, what I would hope for the outcome is that people aren't afraid of using these type of technologies and figuring out what other use cases, continuing to develop on this open source code, so that potentially someone down the line thinks of a better use case and says, hey, I want to borrow this really cool thing that Tornado Cash was doing, without there being some kind of stigma of, oh, I can't really do that because it was associated with, these OFAC sanctions. But I would say more than all of that, what I'm hoping to get out of this is just a little bit of sentiment check on folks in government, and just in general of, hey, privacy is this thing that we care about. We want to push back a little bit, so that you don't continue like, if with this precedent, if this is first, then what's next and what's after that? well, before it just starts snowballing, my hope is that this is our, as a crypto community's first kind of, hip check of, hey, we don't like that thing you did. Let's talk about this. So.
Yeah. And I'm not one of the plaintiffs, but I am deeply committed to this cause because my wife is the head of business development at Aztec Network, which is a privacy and scalability layer 2 on Ethereum. And what it does is fairly straightforward. It allows people to interact with financial applications in privacy. And so if you're using Compound or Aave or other things in the future, like, you're going to treat these things as your bank account. And when you treat them as your bank account, you would like to interact with your bank account in a private way. And so I'm a deep believer in what we're doing, and I'm extremely grateful to all of you for taking up this call and joining this complaint. And I just wanted to say such a huge thank you to all of you, from everybody in the Ethereum and crypto and privacy communities. And also thank you for coming on this podcast and sharing your stories. With that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Victor.
Victor.
Thank you.
Bye.
This case has now been filed in the Western District of Texas. You can find a copy of the complaint online, and you can read all about how these individuals and other innocent people were harmed by these sanctions. Coinbase is proud to support them, as I mentioned before. And what we're going to be doing is keeping an eye on it over the next few months as it moves its way through the court system. We're going to continue supporting and funding this lawsuit brought by these individuals. We believe that privacy is incredibly important for everybody, but especially when you're working on a blockchain and everything you've ever done is publicly available and accessible for everybody to see. And so with that, we look forward to continuing this challenge and continue to support these individuals as we fight the good fight.
Today's conversation is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal or investment advice. Actual results may vary materially from any forward-looking statements made and are subject to risks and uncertainties.